Good evening and welcome back to the 19th hole. We are live on In Between Media. Make sure you subscribe to In Between Media here on YouTube and like this video if you really like the content. Plenty more where that came from. We are talking about the Zurich Classic of New Orleans this week. Let's hit it. Hey, we're back. Another Tuesday night, another golf DFS and betting show with Conor Coughlin there to my right. I'm Bo McBrayer. We are the 19th hole, and we are moving on from South Carolina, New Orleans. And the Zurich Classic is unique. It's the only team event on the PGA Tour schedule where you have guys that are pairing up and trying to win a tournament at stroke play with a little bit of a unique twist where it takes two to tango and it takes two to win at the Zurich Classic. Defending champions, Xander Schauffele Patrick Cantlay, they probably finished their round in just under 17 hours. But yeah, they look good. They're huge favorites this year. Let's jump right in. Conor, how do you feel about how things went down last week?
Well, I mean, it was nice to beat you again, but outside of that, it was not necessarily my best week. That's for sure. Had a lot of 4 of 6s on DFS, couple 6 of 6s, but in the end, just didn't win a ton of money. And the bets fell a little bit flat. I was super high on Hovland.
Yeah, he fell flat on his own end.
Yeah.
I'm kicking myself because I had a pretty rough week. I didn't get skunked outright. I did have a top 10 for Sung J M, who I remember you weren't too high on, but I ended up picking M and a couple other guys over Jordan Spieth and, of course, champion Matt Fitzpatrick. Even though they popped up really heavily for me in the very beginning of the week, I ended up moving off of them for better odds, so to speak. And it really cost me because my DFS lineups were awful, including the one against you. And my bets were all in all pretty bad. I had 4 of my 6 guys miss the cut. That's never good for business.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were all over the Korean guys, and I think a lot of people got a little burnt last week.
Well, the only Korean to make the cut was M, and that's not good. Is the Englishman. The weather held up really well, which we expected the Englishmen to really rise when the weather got bad, but the weather was pretty good all week, and the Englishmen were huge in this tournament. Obviously, the winner, Fitzpatrick, is from England, and then the whole top 20 was just littered with English flags. So I guess that was just a good setup for them in general.
Yeah, I was actually, some of the guys that crept up, like Fleetwood was somebody that we liked, and he crept up quite a bit. I think he would have been even farther up the leaderboard if the weather had kind of gone to hell. But it was, again, just not my best week. I don't traditionally do tremendously well at the Heritage.
Yeah.
Once you had to start playing somebody other than Webb Simpson every week, it got a little tricky.
Gross. Yeah, and Webb Simpson officially dust. He missed the cut at his only really good look of the year. So bye-bye, rest in peace, Webb Simpson. Let's spin it back officially so that you can victory lap your new winning streak. Well, here you go, Conor. The floor is yours. Victory lap the Heritage, even though we both played pretty poorly. You were less poor than I was.
That's true. I was I think again last week the biggest issue I had kind of across the board was just being heavy on Scheffler and Hovland. And both of them looked like, I mean, starting out everything was going to go pretty. It's going to be kind of a gravy week for me and just cruise, and then it just kind of got progressively worse and just tapered all the way through the weekend. I mean, a couple of good plays though that we did have. I mean, Ben Martin was somebody that I threw out who I don't think a lot of people were on. Came through with a 6 under and scored just some decent DraftKings points. I think who else did we, like I said, fading on Spieth and Fitz was dumb. Fitz was trending, had looked good at the Masters. Spieth to me,
defending champion and rolling hot.
Yeah, I just was not. I was not there on those two guys, and I'm not usually there on Fitz except for maybe this week.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, a couple of guys that kind of snuck into the top 10, top 25 area last week that I really liked this week that I wanted to call out when we're spinning it back is Denny McCarthy is somebody that I really like this week who kind of decided to start rounding into form a little bit at Heritage. And then Wyndham Clark, who's somebody Bo notoriously gives me hell for, also was creeping in there. And this is a course that's a little more wide open for Mr. Wyndham Clark. So a couple of guys that were starting around into form at Heritage last week that I thought I'd call out and kind of
kind of for what it's worth. Not much, but it is worth something. It is something to be noted, especially with the unique nature of this week's tournament, the Zurich Classic of New Orleans, TPC Louisiana. Break the course down. I know we had a pretty standard par 72. Just it's kind of a scoring fest, and it's also the setup. The scoring setup is different because you have teams of two that are doing two different play formats in stroke play. So break it down for us. How are we going to win this week?
A wing and a prayer, I think, honestly.
It's so reassuring.
Yeah, no, TPC Louisiana, par 72, 7,300 to 7,400 yards, depending on how they place the tees and stretch it out. It is Bermuda grass. You got pretty damn wide fairways. You're going to have a lot higher percentage of fairways hit here than most stops. Very sticky greens. There is some water on some holes. There is some water on approach shots. There is a fair amount of greenside bunkering. It is another Pete Dye track, so you've got some kind of optical illusions that Mr. Dye likes to throw your way. But at the end of the day, this is a really gettable, really scoreable course. Kind of like Bo said, especially in the format we're in. So the format that we're in, basically what you're going to have is you're going to have a 4-ball on Thursday and Saturday, and then you're going to have alternating shot between each team member on Friday and Sunday. There's 80 teams here. The players did get to pick their own partners, so there is some kind of cool team dynamics. Like Homa and Morikawa got their own like custom LA Dodger jerseys earlier this week, and there's some swag, some swagger. So it's 80 teams. Top 33 in ties are going to make it for Saturday and Sunday, and really, maybe the only defense this course genuinely has is weather. And right now, aside from some scattered thunderstorms, maybe a couple of the days, like the weather is looking pretty good. So I really do think that this is a course where you want to look at guys that are able to score on par 5s and par 4s. The par 3s, I think you're going to have some good looks at it, but I would really focus in on the par 4s because par 5s here are gettable by almost everybody. So you're going to really need some guys that get some birdies and bunches on the par 4s. I don't know. Anything you want to add about the course? It's not one of the more.
I just wanted to clarify the format. So 4-ball, otherwise known as best ball, it's not scramble where you take the best shot. It's both guys in best ball format are going to play their own balls, and whoever cards the lowest score is the one that they're going to card as a team, on each hole. And then alternate shot that they're going to both tee off on number 1. And then they're going to alternate every shot they're in. So it's going to be, they're going to basically, one guy hits one shot, they play the same ball on Thursday and Sunday, or Friday and Sunday. They play the same ball back and forth, and alternate shot more challenging, more strategic because, I mean, in best ball, I guess if one guy's in the junk, then another guy can play more conservatively, or if one guy's safely in the fairway, then the next guy can play more aggressively. But alternate shot seems to be where the winners are kind of crowned here, where the games being complementary to one another is pretty essential because you got one guy that's good off the tee and he can set up the other guy being good on approach, and then the other guy that's good off the tee is also a good putter. Then you're really in business because you can play off each other's games, and that's going to be really key. That's how Xander and Cantlay won last year, is they just complemented each other really well. Where Xander's making putts from all over the world, Cantlay is just sticking it close, and it seemed like they were hand in hand. And so that was kind of what won it for them last year, was the alternate shot making a big difference.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, I mean, not only do Cantlay and Xander complement each other perfectly, I mean, they're not that dissimilar of a golfer either. So, yeah. You know, a lot of the distances, a lot of the alternate shot stuff was kind of second nature, because those are the shots that they would naturally be hitting in a lot of instances as well. So, you know, I like them a lot this year. I mean, they're unbettable, but I mean,
that's the other challenge that we're gonna get broken down, and it's pretty crazy, the odds that are popping up to repeat. Way too high, I think. Way too short. Are you drinking anything tonight? I know we had a pretty rough week. I don't even have anything next to me. I might just venture over and grab something out of my cabinet mid-show.
Yeah, just get something in you and get a little pep in that step, boy. Jim Beam Distiller's Cut, which you can't get anymore. I've had this bottle for quite some time. As I was scanning the room, I was like, man, I haven't sipped on that for a while. So
you're gonna hate to finish that one.
I got a fair amount left. We'll probably nurse it for a little while longer, but yeah,
that's the Jim Beam Distillery.
Yeah, that one's awesome. 100 proof, so I don't need a ton of it, but
all right, let's see, what do we got here? What do you say we twirl some clubs? Let's break down the betting and jump right into it.
Let's go.
Yeah, so betting is the same. We're going to get over that. But on the betting sites, we particularly focus on DraftKings Sportsbook. They are bettable as pairs. So you're betting on both guys. There's no individual component to this tournament. It is teams of two, stroke play, with the two different formats on alternating days. So it's kind of like looking for softer odds. I don't know that, because there's a lot of teams down at the bottom of this list that are pretty just like kind of like, you know, they're going to miss the cut. They're just there for the charities and all that. But there's some really good teams at the very top. This is a pretty top heavy field. And then you have a couple shots you might want to take down below. We're going to go over that. I think it's actually a pretty good edge week because of how lopsided the odds are at the top. I think we can find some edges here. On the betting side, DFS is going to be an absolute nightmare, but betting, I think that's where you can actually make some money this week, is on the betting side. Just don't get too aggressive. I'm not going to be aggressive this week. I'm just going to play the plays that I feel strongly about and just kind of move on to next week. But at the very top, plus 300, only 3-1 odds, only getting paid 3-1 for Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay to repeat as champions here. That is atrocious. Don't bet that. Please don't. I mean, it's one thing if they do win and you get your 3-1 payout, it's just going to feel cheap. It's going to feel cheap to win that. I would start with Morikawa and Homa, the two Cal Bears, who are obviously from Southern California, which is why they have their matching Dodgers jerseys. Why'd you both go to college in NorCal then? Come on, guys. But they're my
so
favorites at
much you got out as
they're
quick.
9-1. How is it possible that those two guys are paying out 3 times more to win this tournament than the guys that won last year? Because I think they're pretty similar in skill level. If not, Homa and Morikawa, I think, are on better form right now.
No, I wouldn't agree with you on that. I Cantlay and Schauffele definitely are, I think, in much better form. Homa's got a lot of issues right now. I don't feel great about where his game is. He's losing strokes off the tee. He's losing strokes on approach. His putter has been just flat. And then, Morikawa, the approach game is going to be excellent, but it just feels like something's off with these two, just all the way around. Like Morikawa should have stood out last week, and he didn't really. And so now you're going to take two guys that really haven't been doing much. They've got the name value, which I think is probably why the odds are falling where they are. But if you look at what they're doing statistically, it just isn't that inspiring. To be honest, the first pair that I want to bet is Horschel and Burns. And just because I think that they are the epitome of what this tournament asks for. They are really complementary skill sets. And Horschel's had some rough go this year, but I think in a little more laid back environment, having Sam Burns there, who has had some really great moments of brilliance recently, to kind of carry him a little bit and take some of the pressure off of him. And this is a tournament or a course that Horschel's played well at before. So just a couple of reasons why I think 14-1 for those guys. I think that's probably like the first reasonable number that jumps off the board. I mean, I'm still showing Morikawa and Homa at 7.5-1, which I can't. There's just, I'd rather just not bet it, So
yeah, it's for me. I saw Homa and Morikawa at 9-1. That was pretty appealing to me. But if it's down to 7.5, then obviously that's not very. Yeah, it's still 9-1 on DraftKings. I actually like Sung J M and Cashmere Keith Mitchell better than Burns and Horschel. Burns and Horschel are good. Don't get me wrong. I like their odds. I love Sung J and Keith Mitchell complementing each other. Sung J, one weakness, if you can call it that, is his off the tee game where he gets a little erratic. Killer Keith is the best driver of the golf ball in the world right now. So I just have a feeling that if you have Keith Mitchell puring the ball down the middle of the fairway, even regardless of which format they're playing that day, Sung Jae on approach and Sung Jae around the greens, that's where this team can score in bunches. I think they're going to make a shit ton of birdies, and I have a feeling that that's kind of your upside play in my opinion. I like yours. I just, for some reason, Sung Jae and Keith Mitchell together just seems like a winning combination.
Yeah, I like Keith Mitchell on Bermuda, so there's that. I'm not going to fight you on Keith Mitchell and Sung Jae. The only thing I would say is one of them better be putting well, because right now neither of them is putting well. So, yeah. But I do think they have excellent approach. So I do like the number that we can get on them for sure. That just seems a little bit more reasonable.
It is like the top of this board is just crazy. 3-1 for Xander and Cantlay. I can't get over that number. That's just ridiculous.
I do think statistically and trend wise and all that, I do think they are a cut above everyone else in this field.
But not 3 times better.
Yeah, I don't think they're 3 times better. I definitely am with you. It's a short number for sure. But moving down a little bit, the next group I like, and you hate them, but at 25-1, I like Wyndham Clark and Bo Hostler. Wyndham Clark's been competing and been playing well. And I
just think that those odds are so short for guys that have done literally next to nothing for 2.5-3 years straight now.
Yeah, to be honest, that's not accurate on Wyndham Clark. Wyndham Clark, the little bit of statistic modeling,
a little bit every once in a while.
The stat modeling I did on Wyndham Clark, he's number 3 in this field statistically on all the scoring metrics. On the approach metric, he's number 3. Opportunity gain, number 3. Bogeys avoided, number 2. He's playing good golf. I just think it's been going under the radar. Bo Hostler is the issue there, but I mean, Bo Hostler has been known to show some flair from time to time anyway. So if Wyndham Clark's got to carry him a little, maybe that's the story. But Wyndham Clark might be able to make a run at winning this tournament outright if it wasn't teams. I mean, he really is genuinely playing pretty well. So
yeah. Yeah, and right in that same area, just a little bit more expensive. Taylor Montgomery, Kurt Kitayama. I think those odds are a little short at 22-1, but again, a complementary game. Like if you could combine Kurt Kitayama's ball striking with Taylor Montgomery's putting, we got a real good player there. And obviously, if we combine Kurt Kitayama's putting with Taylor Montgomery's ball striking, that's a really bad player. But I'm not gonna focus on that side of it, because if these guys get hot, it's another Im and Mitchell kind of thing where they're gonna score and they're gonna put some birdies on the board on this course, especially with Kitayama's distance here. The 7,400 yards with wide open fairways. You're gonna see some bombers pop up to the top. That's why I think Wyndham Clark is a nice play here, because he's such a long hitter, and if he's in the fairway, then he's scoring a lot better than typically. Bo Hostler, very accurate player, great putt. That complementary piece you have there. I just think the upgraded version of that same complementary game is with Montgomery and Kitayama, especially with the way that they've both been playing this year in spurts. It hasn't been consistent for either one of them, but at the same time, we've seen the peak of both of them. Taylor Montgomery's putting stroke might be the best in the world. Kurt Kitayama on approach has been very good. His short game's been very good. And when he finds fairways, or somebody finds fairways for him, we're looking at a lot of birdies on the board. So I do like them a little bit more than Hostler and Clark, but I actually do like Hostler and Clark a little bit more than you would expect.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Kitayama and Montgomery. Montgomery scares me a little bit just because that putter cooled off significantly over the last month or so, but it doesn't take it away from him. It's still a skill set he has.
Really good.
So JJ Spawn, even though he absolutely slammed my head in a trunk last week, Spawn with our good friend, please don't fuck me, Mr. Hayden Buckley.
Hey, this is one of my favorite values on the whole board.
I think so. And I'm showing him at 30-1. You might be showing him a little bit different, but
30.
Both these guys are fully capable of flag hunting and scoring on the drop of a dime. Both have a very well-rounded game.
Hayden Buckley's our guy for scoring average.
Yeah, 100%. And like when you look at Hayden Buckley too, like some of the parts of his game that have kind of been a little bit problematic, namely off the tee game to start, is a lot well mitigated here. These fairways are massive, so I'm not worried about that. And JJ Spawn in the last sort of kind of weird format event, we saw what he did. He went out and absolutely turned the screws on some big name dudes. So
worked it.
I really like that 30-1. That's probably one of my favorite bets on the board.
I agree completely. That's scary. I know you're going to say Denny McCarthy and Joel Damon are good. That's another agreement point at 35-1. Denny, another world-class putter. Joel Damon, a great ball striker as far as accuracy. Neither one of them are very long hitters, but they're both really good spot players, especially Denny gets his putter rolling like he has been. Last week showed up with the putter again. That's really encouraging, especially in a tournament like this where it's a little bit quirky. You want to see guys who are on good recent form. Joel Damon looked great last week again. That was encouraging. So both of these guys coming in hot, really encouraging for this type of event.
Yeah, and Denny McCarthy too, like quietly has been like kind of creeping back into form. Like I don't think anybody's really noticing him. But this is honestly the dude that if I had to make a top 5 of best putters in the world consistently, Denny's on it every time. Yeah. And I love where he's right now for me statistically. And like surprisingly, when I looked at strokes gained on par 4s, which I think is kind of critical this week, whether it's in a team format or not, he's number 4 in this field over the last 36 rounds. So this is a dude that's scoring on par 4s on his own steam, and put him with Mr. Joel Damon. I think that only gets better. So love that.
Yeah, I think they're kind of like the Bud Light version of Xander and Patrick. They're both kind of the same player, and They do well together. I don't really have anybody between 50 and 100. So if you have anybody you want to throw in there, that'd be a perfect time to do it.
I got a couple. Well, I do want to throw out Fitz and Fitz.
The brothers, defending champ last week. I mean, obviously Matt Fitzpatrick is on fire right now.
But if you
what was the stat Golf Digest put on there? He was 62 for 62 on putts of 8 feet or shorter last week at the Heritage. That's prime Phil Mickelson territory, where I couldn't believe the stat. Like, I had to look it up again to prove that they weren't just BSing us. But yeah, Fitzpatrick did not miss a single putt out of 62 from 8 feet and in last week. That's otherworldly putting. That's hot as hot can get. And his little brother is playing with him. That's pretty cool.
Well, and dude, if you dive his brother, of his last 6 starts, he's got 3 top 10s, 2 missed cuts, and like a T25 or something. Now, granted, they're not PGA events necessarily. I think 2 of them are. But the guy is a stick, and he does everything. He does everything that his big brother does. And this is a dude that if we could just get him in the right tournament, and get him an exemption, I mean, could actually be kind of a big deal on the tour. I mean, he's got a really, really solid game. It's not just Matt Fitzpatrick throwing his brother a chance. I mean, he's a legit golfer. So, 35 to 1 is what I'm seeing it at. I think that's actually good value, because I think those guys are every bit as good as some of the guys that are way shorter at 20 or under to 1.
I agree. All right. You have any more in there? Let's keep firing away, because like I said, I have a pretty big gap here. I'm going to take one shot at 100 to 1, but as far as my betting slip goes, I'm keeping it simple, stupid this week.
I've got 4 that are pretty deep. Lipsky and Rye, I like. Target Golf, Rye is looking good. The other thing too with them is they do score well. Lipsky scores pretty prolifically when he's on point. Chesson Hadley and Ben Martin. Ben Martin has been playing incredibly consistent golf. Chesson Hadley has been known to get hot on approach. I think Ben Martin's short game, Chesson Hadley's approach game, I think that's a pretty good combo, and they're pretty deep down there. I don't know. What do you have them at?
I'm still scrolling here. 65 looks like 65 to 1 on those two. Ben Martin, Chesson Hadley, 65 to 1.
Yeah,
so not bad.
I think that's a pretty good one. Let's see. And then my deepest is probably Nick Watney and Charlie Hoffman.
Nick Watney, shout out NorCal.
So I just like them both in this format. And they're 2 dudes that 100% when they get it going, they can score really well. I'm showing them at 200 to 1. I think that's worth a couple of shots. I think they're almost 100% going to make the cut. I love this format.
That's pretty bold.
I like this format for both of them. I mean, honestly, like some of the, you look at some of the scoring prowess that both of them have. I mean, Charlie Hoffman can get hotter than anybody on the planet from time to time. So, and Nick Watney's had some good performances in the last 6 months. I mean, if you want a deep dive, that's about as deep as you're going to be able to get, and it's still like respect yourself for putting money on it.
Yeah, so I'm seeing 180 to 1 on them on DraftKings at least. So 200 to 1, probably in other books. It makes sense in that range. My deep dive is 100 to 1, Justin Lauer and Dylan Wu. And mainly because of form all season. Both of these guys have played so well this season. And unless you actually follow the PGA Tour like we do, you're not going to look at those 2 names and go, oh, yeah, I totally get it. You're going to be like, who? Well, there's Brandon Wu, who's been pretty good this year, but Dylan Wu's actually been better than Brandon Wu this year. And Justin Lauer, we've talked out multiple times this year, and he keeps making cuts. And I think if those 2 make the cut, we could see the complementary nature of their game, where Lauer is one of the best putters in the world. He's top 20 putting. And then Dylan Wu is one of the best approach players in this field. So we're looking at if they can get off the tee at all. Between the 2 of them, they're both pretty bad off the tee. If we can get either one of those guys off the tee accurately, I think we're in business with Lauer and Dylan Wu.
You never got to go far to sell me on Lauer.
I know. I figured you'd love that one. And of course, I did win a bet earlier this year on the Woo versus Woo, and Dylan was my guy, so I'm going to keep Dylan Woo on my guy's side. So it's a combination of our two guys.
Hey, I love it. I love it. Dark horse.
Yes, sir. 100-1. Can't beat it. Just throw a couple shekels on it. What do you say that we dive right into this DFS and see what we got? Because it's looking pretty rough in these streets. Let's try not to slam any New Orleans trunks.
The club is well. This would be a wrestling classic.
All right, so DraftKings is what we primarily use. I guess if you want to use FanDuel and do that, you can do that, but we much prefer DraftKings. The pricing is pretty favorable on DraftKings if you actually know who you're going to pick. I don't. I need Conor's help with this one this week because leverage is going to be pretty important. I have a keen feeling that it's always important, but this week it's going to be extremely important to find leverage in this field. Conor, what do we have at the top? Because I have a feeling there's going to be some chalk pretty heavily centered on these top 3 or 4 groups.
So it's super hard to figure out what the chalk actually is this week, by the way, because if you're playing DraftKings, interesting how they do it on these team events. For instance, Xander and Cantlay are at $11,100. They're both the same price. You can only play one of them. Doesn't matter which one you play. That single person is going to score the same points. But because of that, when you're figuring rostership, when you're figuring leverage plays, you kind of got to look at both, and you got to kind of try and ascertain what the average is going to be for the total ownership.
I remember doing this last year and just throwing my hands up in disgust.
And I'll be honest, man, that is pretty much how I felt as I was trying to do the show notes that I'm reading off of right now. I'm like, well, it's 33% on Xander and it's, 22% on Cantlay. So it's maybe 28% is the total, somewhere in there. But I think
I definitely remember this from last year. I'm not very cool. So,
but I think what you can do pretty comfortably is, especially up top. So starting in the 10,000s, you can pretty comfortably know that Keith Mitchell is probably. Keith Mitchell and Sungjae Im look like they're probably going to be the leverage play. And they're going to come somewhere total rostership, I'm guessing about 16%. And I think that's a pair that Bo and I would agree on. If you're going to play somebody over 10K, that's probably the two that I would play. I really don't have a whole lot of interest in 11-1 for Xander and Cantlay, especially at 30%. I really don't have, and not for all the reasons I talked about. So maybe this is where Bo and I disagree a little bit, but I really don't have as much confidence in Morikawa and Homa, at least not to pay 10-9 and eat 18-20% chalk on one or both of them. So
I would agree with that. I find myself starting with Mitchell and Im. So that's kind of where I'm starting. Seems pretty prudent because there's gonna be so much chalk at the top.
Yeah, and the thing that you see with the pricing this week is that because there are you could literally go down into the 6K range, read off probably a dozen teams, and go, okay, they're here to, knock it around for a couple hours, some shits and gigs, have a couple cocktails. It's fun playing a scramble with your friends, whether you're recreational or professional. So, you can knock a bunch of people right off the top that way. And if you do that, you can really adjust yourself down to 40 teams. So you start getting into the 9s and there's people that already are questionable for DFS purposes. The 10s are saturated. So you really, that's where your leverage needs to be, I think. There's a roundabout way to say that, but
yeah, even with the starting at the low 10s, I'm having trouble building out a lineup under the salary cap because they've got a lot of these decent teams clustered in a little overpriced. So you kind of have to dip into the sixes at least once, and I don't like that, but it's kind of forcing you to. So again, throwing up my hands in disgust because building a lineup seems to be darn near impossible to get one that's palatable. It's really hard this week, man.
I think getting out of the tens. I think that's why I really like the Wyndham Clark team so much. Is 9,400 keeps me out of the sixes. Wyndham Clark, Bo Hostler. I think 9,400. I definitely think that they are capable of hanging with the big boys up top. So I'll save $1,700 by dropping down to them. And that's probably where I'm going to start a lot of mine. I mean, Wyndham Clark, like I said, if this was a individual tournament, I think has a chance of winning this tournament against the same guys that he's playing against in pairs. So I know that's not necessarily great logic, but that's just the form that he's in. So if Bo Hostler can even show up 70%, I think we got a pretty formidable pairing.
So question, Fitz and Fitz seem to be the best value on this board at 8,200. Are they picking up any chalk from Matt's win last week?
Yeah, they're probably hard to say 100% what they are, but somewhere around 13, 14%.
Okay, that's not bad though. For this kind of tournament, it seems like it's okay.
And I like that.
I'm having to make a choice between 9,100 Kitayama and Montgomery, and then going with Hostler and Clark or Buckley and Spahn. I can't fit two of those into the same lineup. I want to, but I can't.
I mean, I think if you're going straight statistics, and again, here's what I looked at for how I built this model. I mean, this is probably the one time out of the year that it will sound like this, but I did opportunities gained, I did birdies or betters gained, I did strokes gains total, stroke gain approach, stroke gain par 4, bogey avoidance, and strokes gain putting. So I basically just took all of the scoring metrics that we use for DFS and weighted them relatively evenly.
Yeah. And good luck to you.
Because that's what this is, though. I mean, you're looking for guys that are going to score points. I mean, that's it. This is different than betting, in that you could have a pair that finishes T5 but outscores the top two guys. I mean, it absolutely can happen.
It's very possible here.
So really looking at some of the scoring, the scoring metrics, especially average DK points. I mean, weird guys pop, but I mean, Patrick Cantlay number 2 or number 1, Xander's number 3. Then you drop down, it's Nick Taylor, Max Homa, Colin Morikawa, Sam Burns, Wyndham Clark are your top 7.
How about the 7? How about the 7s? Because I'm just trying to get through this as quickly as possible at this point, because the 6s looked wholly disgusting. And I found one value in the 7s that you didn't talk about yet. That is the Canadian duo of Taylor Pendrith and Michael Gligich. That one popped for me, and I was excited about that because 7,200 for those two seems like a great value.
Yeah, they popped up for me too, and that's actually one of the better plays in the 7s.
Woo!
So yeah, no complaints from me on that one. I like Justin Lowers in the high 7s.
I got him locked in.
And Dylan Wu, to your point, just from scoring perspective, stats is number 16 in this field. So scores really well on par 4s. Number 8 overall in this field for individual performance. So I like that team a lot for DFS, and that price I think is pretty damn reasonable. I do like Ben Griffin and Ryan Gerard right below them, though, at 7,700.
Griffin's been playing well. I don't know a lot about Gerard, though.
So interesting thing about Gerard is he actually, statistically at least, on 24 measured rounds, is better than Ben Griffin in almost every category. And as a matter of fact, he's number 6 in this field for opportunities gained. He's number 6 for shots gained approach. And and then he's all green across the board in all my other stats. So Ryan Gerard might be kind of under the radar. I really like him there.
He's got the sponsors invite to play with Ben Griffin, who's on the tour full time now. But yeah, make the best out of it, Brosif. He's a Corn Ferry vet from what I'm reading right now, and he lit the Corn Ferry Tour up back in February. Oh, 4th place at the Honda. Did you say that?
I did not say that, but that is also true.
4th place at the Honda Classic. That's a tough tournament. I like this guy already.
I've played him a few times this year. He's one of those guys that I'll just randomly throw in if I find myself down in the 6s. I'm like, oh, I know Ryan Gerard. So yeah,
this might be the first time.
I think it's actually a really nice play. I mean, I think they rate out pretty well together. So, let's see, in the 7s, is there anybody else in the 7s? I would have some interest in SH Kim. I always have interest in Eric Cole.
Yep.
Who's a flat 7. I forgot who his teammate is, but Eric Cole's flat 7.
I'm pulling it up right now. Eric Cole and Sam Saunders. Eesh.
Okay. I mean, I have a little less interest in Eric Cole now, but
Sam Saunders' grandpa, much, much better than Sam Saunders.
Maybe he can harness
come back to life.
But Eric Cole, I think, is pretty good. It's in, you know what? I mean, it's hard in a situation when you get down here with some of these lesser known dudes. Scramble format shit, dude. I've had some incredible scores get posted in scrambles. So, I mean, I don't think it's any different for pros. One guy in the group gets a hot putter, gets a hot approach game. It's all it takes.
Best ball, man. You get a guy gone a birdie streak, and then one birdie streak ends, and the other guy starts making birdies, and then you start stringing them together.
So dropping into the 6s, the only guy in the 6s, which is why I probably will have very little of above 10,000. The only guy in the 6s that I have a true interest in is Sam Stevens, who rates out, believe it or not, he is in all the scoring metrics, number 7 in my modeling. So this guy, number 8 in opportunity gain, number 2 in birdies or better gain, number 2 in DK points scored, number 5 in strokes gained total, and then his bogey avoidance top 20, overall approach metric, he's top 30. The only hole in his game is the putter, and that's still kind of debatable. He's still in the top half of this field. And then I looked at his recent performances, which I wasn't aware of. He did miss the cut at Heritage, but before that, he was number 2 at Valero and number 3 at Corrales. And then he was number 15 in Puerto Rico, missed the cut at Valspar, missed the Honda, but 34th at AT&T, 13th at Farmers.
He's flying under the radar, is finishing well. I mean, 2 top 5s in his last 3 appearances. That's nothing to shake a stick at.
No, and he's actually got a pretty consistent game. The only place that he even kind of loses strokes on a weekly basis is around the green, but even that's not a full stroke around the green. He's gaining in every metric. So
I'm just choosing to not look at Max McGreevy's stats he's playing with.
Max McGreevy, not great. Not known to be a real competitor. He's a short hitter. He does have a fairly high accuracy rating, though. He's about 60% in both driving accuracy and greens and reg, so he keeps the ball in play. The thing that I do like about Max McGreevy for this pair is his around the green game is actually, he averages 1 stroke per round on around the green. And his last outing at Heritage, where he did make the cut, he gained almost 5 strokes around the green and a pretty difficult around the green complexes to deal with. So I like the balance. This is another team that I really like the balance, and I like how well Sam Stevens can score. So
All right, then. Is that how you want to end the show? Sam Stevens and Max McGreevy.
I mean, I don't think I've got
I
anybody.
mean, we already talked about Charlie Hoffman there. So and NorCal resident Nick Watney. So we'll leave it at that. I mean,
Yeah, if it's your first time watching us, the show is normally a lot longer, and we normally talk about a lot more statistical stuff. But this is a tournament where, like, honestly, I would throw money at guys you like, or decent players. I would, I'd spread it around a little bit, watch for entertainment, gamble for entertainment. But this is a crapshoot. Like I said, it's one step up from your Muni scramble that you go play and get drunk off the cart girl. So, I mean,
it reminds me of we had a two-man team tournament in high school golf, and I would pair up with my best friend Tony, and it was a 6-6-6 tournament. We called it the Mark of the Beast tournament. The first 6 holes were scramble, the next 6 were best ball, and the next 6 were alternate shot. And we won it one year with a 66. In high school, a 66 in a par 72 is pretty damn good, even for 6-6. Holding it together in alternate shots, really tough as a high schooler, because we're best friends. We're feeding off each other's energy, and I think an alternate shot one on the 17th hole, we were up by like 2 shots over the group next to us. That was our main competition, and of course, I hit a ball dead duck hook right and a dog leg left, and our approach was longer than the hole itself. He had to hit a second shot from 300 yards out, and he was so pissed at me. We ended up saving par miraculously and winning, but it was like I've never seen my friend look at me so angrily after a tee shot.
He's like, "Bo, get out of the cart. You're walking to the next shot."
Well, no, I was trying to hit a cut, and I double crossed it, and you know how bad that gets.
Well, especially for a guy who hits from the wrong side of the tee box.
Yeah, I was trying to hit a right to left cut, and I hit a right to right duck hook. It was rough.
Yeah, I was on a scramble team one time, probably last summer. Yeah, definitely last summer. We did 66 shots as a group. So I mean that's kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah. It all counts the same. All right. Thank you all for joining us. This is the 19th Hole Live. We're going to be back next Tuesday again at 8:30 Eastern. Make sure you subscribe to In Between Media. We are the 19th Hole. I got to hit the outro right about now.
Wow.